I'd like to take the next 10 minutes and share a little bit of some of the findings where the team's starting to come up with on this corporate buyer's guide. So the corporate buyer's guide's an effort that we're been working on in response to a lot of feedback we've gotten from AI leaders who tell us they all want, let me share, all want the same thing. I want ChatGPT, but for my own data and our own security with little or no hallucinations or errors. And we see this again and again in terms of a desire, or we're not going forward with anything till we can get these kind of key questions answered. One of the things that is coming up a lot is just really kind of trying to, and this is our first pass at trying to really kind of cement the basic use cases. I see this a lot where, leaders and executives seem to be sometimes morphing these together, but I value people's feedback if you disagree or agree. There seems to be a common one on how, as an AI leader, I, drive productivity enhancements, particularly on an individual level. This is a sales rep using it to improve RFPs, or a marketing manager, or some cases, individual coder here. And do we have an employee use policy or not? What is it? Are we going to standardize on enterprise Bing chat or not? Are we going to reimburse people for $20 for the GPT-4 version or not? And then there's this whole nother one that's typically at the process level. The customer, might be a chatbot for customer support, chatbot for onboarding, chatbot for thinking about different customer support issues, or having good conversations with unstructured data, 500 PDFs or 3,000 employees, finding more information out of a technical service manual. And those tend to be more just, process automation, things that involve a lot more in the organization, typically connecting with existing data sets, trying to figure out if we're going to vectorize it or not. Do people agree with these two things, or are there other nuances or any comments or critiques? Paul, you still have your hand up. Is that from before, or do you have some thoughts?
So one question for me is, does it have to be one?
One what?
So are they having to choose if it's, one solution?
Oh, great. Yes. Yeah. Share more,
I'm just, I'm taking some training on LinkedIn Learning as far as prompt engineers, and they're specifically talking about, for this solution, use ChatGPT. For this other solution, let's use what is it? The Edge, Bing.
Bing, yes.
And then I think Google has the search engine that goes through the. So are there different scenarios that you would use different tools for certain things?
Yeah, Bard's the Google tool.
And do we just say, no, you should just use one, or should the guide be multiple? You can use it for different ones. That's what I mean.
Yeah, we're certainly strongly encouraging companies, if they don't have an clear employee use policy, to create one, or, at least be clear, so at least those enthusiasts know, what lanes they can drive or not drive. I'm surprised how many companies we talk with who don't have an employee use policy. David, share your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I strongly believe you need to offer multiple ones. I've just created a policy and completing a training curriculum for a healthcare management consulting firm to train their staff on how to use Gen AI for market research. And the simple story is, since they're a Microsoft shop, Bing Chat Enterprise is approved for their confidential data and their clients' confidential data, but no PHI. That, for those who don't know, that's protected health information. And then we are training them on the Gen AI chatbots we have found perform best besides Bing Chat Enterprise, and that's ChatGPT-4. It's Claude for its large context window, and Perplexity AI for its great performance and citations in market research.
Thank you, David. What do you find Perplexity best for?
Market research. It does a great job for when you're doing types of market research and providing good citations. Although I have gotten, or my team and I have gotten really much better out of prompting ChatGPT-4 to generate references as well. But the company's not going to pay for ChatGPT-4 for everyone. They're kind of banking on Microsoft will, bring Bing Chat Enterprise up to snuff at some point, and they're already paid for that. So,
David, I haven't used Perplexity enough. Is there a paid version as well, or is it just a free?
we haven't explored the paid version. I don't know if there's a paid version, and it's perplexity.ai. And I have someone I just asked, my company is Value Made Good, where I provide consulting service and product management and AI. And the company that I'm working with to develop this curriculum is Commonwealth Health Advisors.
That's great. Thank you, David. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Sort of this gets back to what Deanna, I feel, was also kind of alluding to. What I noticed is I probably wouldn't use Chat GPT as the example. I would make it more non-vendor specific. Even Microsoft's product isn't Chat GPT, right? That's OpenAI's product that's built on top of GPT-4. So that would be like saying, oh, well, buy a Coke, right? Versus saying buy a soda or something. So it's probably better, because we're talking about for the whole landscape of Gen AI use cases, not to be vendor specific. But the other thing I thought of is in terms of enterprise use case, neither of those really captures the sense of like Copilot, which is really 35 tools, and that it's Gen AI everywhere. Like Salesforce is integrating Gen AI, Gainsights for customer success is integrating Gen AI. Like Gen AI is going to be in each of these individual tools that all these people are using at enterprise and department level. Not just the way they're applying it, but the way they're getting it as a result of all the products they're already using.
That's a really good example. So that's almost we need here as a third row, Adam, that's kind of large language models embedded in enterprise tools you're already using, like Microsoft Office.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah. That's great. Any other thoughts? I want to show one more slide and get some feedback. Great. So let me shrink this. So the other one that we've been getting feedback on is on page 5. A kind of a market map of we're trying to figure out. It is so confusing out there. There's so many different claims, and this is our working simplistic model just to kind of do the continents, if you will. So the use case that we're trying to target is not target. The centers is the AI director or the CTO or chief digital officer or chief information officer, a lot of different titles, that's facing, medium, large size company facing 30, 40, 50 requests for different projects and trying to figure out, do we let HR use, chat or Bing? Do we tell them to go find out if Workday's got large language models coming in? So the top left are, emerging tools and capabilities that are either open or closed source, that have some type of contractual license you have to sign, so it's not just purely an open source capability, but that can be used in multiple departments for multiple different use cases. The one on the right are ones we're seeing, and I think G from Cape Start's on the line, and we're seeing, there'll probably be thousands and thousands and thousands of ones on the right where they're very specific to a particular function or a particular industry. The bottom left's a little bit what Adam was talking about, where your existing vendors and ISVs are adding large language model capability into their products. So this is the Salesforce is adding it to all theirs. HubSpot, SAP's announced capabilities on this. I think most companies are probably working on it, if not all announced it. And the bottom right are all the important emerging tools to help developers and IT folks. Reactions or thoughts? Or David, looked like your hand was up. Do you have thoughts or corrections or improvements?
If you're talking to David Owen, that's just residual from earlier. I'll try to lower.
All right. Thank you, David.
Oh, this is Kevin Petrie. I might chime in.
Please.
I think it's actually more of a question. The horizontal box that you've got there includes Databricks, Mosaic ML. So it looks like it's a mix of large language model platforms themselves and platforms that folks can use to fine tune or even build their own language models. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that's been, we've been doing briefings with different vendors. It's the vendor approach is, very varied, very varied, or it's quite varied. I mean, we're seeing some companies like, that are building both an open source and a closed source foundation model, where some that are just doing closed source like OpenAI, some that are going to be open source agnostic. others that are trying to build value around it. So it's been a challenge to figure out exactly where the line is that makes sense. I think over time, this is our first kind of stake in the cloud, if you will, Kevin. But yeah, I think it's, from a company standpoint, we keep hearing lots and lots of confusion. Now, anecdotally, my gut is 95% or 80% of all deployments that are in production or in development, particularly in the States, have been done with OpenAI through Azure. It's anecdotally almost feeling like it's become the default IBM choice. We were talking with a company 2 weeks ago that 160 outsourced AI developers in India. They just do implementations on AI stuff, and they were telling us that 95% of their particular projects are all Azure OpenAI. And the few cases where the teams wanted to use Cohere or Anthropic, those teams actually didn't want to go upstairs and explain to the executives or feel they could get away to the executives explaining why they didn't go with the quote safe or popular choice.
Interesting. Yeah, I have heard a fair amount of interest in the open source alternative to commercial platforms, and wonder if there'll be more of a shift to that away from OpenAI as folks understand the ability, some of the advantages of open source over the next couple of years.
I mean, clearly, we've certainly heard a lot of interest in Meta's Llama 2 thing.
Yeah, yeah.
3 large companies that are, basically doing, my company, GPT, and telling their employees don't use OpenAI, but use I don't use the name of the company, big company GPT. That's 100% in our firewall or in our private network for those security concerns.
I remember
Good stuff.
I remember when personal computers first came out, in companies, 2 or 3 people started getting interested and started doing interesting things. And then when the things like Excel came out, same thing, 2 or 3 people started, and pretty soon it became obvious that they were doing useful things, and more people sort of learned how to do it. I suspect the same kind of model will happen with large corporations. A few people will start doing it and start doing really interesting things. Then that will get the interest of all of the other employees, and they'll learn and keep learning. And by then, it will be pretty much embedded in almost all the tools that they use every day, like Excel and Word and that kind of stuff. So it will become sort of the kind of thing that grows internally in companies the same way it has with the other technologies.
Exactly. And I think one thing we've had 3 companies tell us that, they're very concerned about vendor proliferation. So part of their initial developing policies only consider large language model capability from existing vendors. So for Microsoft Shop or something through AWS, or see if you can solve your business need through what's coming through SAP or Salesforce. Go ahead, Mike. I see you raise your hand. Mike Melville,
You're mute.
On mute. I'm sorry about that. This is going to sound like a very basic question to everybody, I'm sure, but one I don't understand. What is the benefit to ChatGPT for being an open AI besides price?
Say that again. Question again, Mike.
What is the benefit
for
a ChatGPT to be an open AI besides price? Do they learn from what's put into it? Is it learning from the users?
100 million beta testers helps.
Yeah, this is Tim Andrews. I would say the reason it's popular right now is pretty much the best. It consistently ranks higher, gives better answers anecdotally. They consistently add features, so people like it. And then, of course, in information economies, the one that gets to critical mass fast becomes the Kleenex. In fact, as someone noted, ChatGPT is used as the example here of a large language model in this report, rather than just saying large language model, because people understand what ChatGPT is, whereas LLM is kind of an abstract thing. So it's already become the Kleenex of the industry to a certain extent. Whether it will stay there is an entirely different question.
Right.
But their performance up to now is pretty good.
And is their performance a lot of it because it's open, that they can use the information that goes into it from the users and fine tune what they're doing, which
they have policies. The default policy and the only policy at the beginning was they would take all information from their prompts and use it for training. but they've since modified and added things. So you can now, in fact, I think the default may be that it doesn't, but you can certainly, there's a setting that says, don't use my data for training. So you can tell it not to use your data to improve the model. And they also do allow fine tuning in certain cases, but you have to go through the API and have an enterprise arrangement, I believe.
Thank
Doesn't
you.
anybody feel comforted by the fact that it's an open source? That means it has subject to some third-party inspection. You can look at the code, or is that not entering in at all?
Paul, you
OpenAI, it's not open source.
AI's
They
do
just
that.
Yeah, OpenAI
open
is definitely
Ah.
closed source.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Didn't realize
Both
that.
closed, and I think there's a new framework that people are going to have to understand with these large language models, which is there's open source, which typically refers to the code. For large language models, there's also a big issue around the training data. So there are actually two issues: transparency of the code and transparency of the training data. So there's actually now a 2x2 you're going to have to evaluate. And in the case of OpenAI, both are closed. They don't give you information on either the code or the training data. And a lot of the open source models like Llama 2 also, the source code is open, but the training data is not transparent.
And just so people know, they were open, but then they switched to closed.
Correct. Go ahead, David Sanchez, and then we'll go to Manny.
Yeah, one of the benefits that OpenAI gets when they release ChatGPT is not only to position itself as one of the main leading companies in this Gen AI revolution that attracts a lot of clients, for example, but also the fact that the evolving of this generative AI is only possible through data. And releasing the chat, they get a lot of data all the time, and this works incredibly well, optimizing their model. For example, some months ago, it was impossible for ChatGPT to think like it do it now, but they use these prompt engineering techniques that people create to fine-tune this model, so you don't need prompt engineer anymore. For example, at the beginning, to make ChatGPT answer an equation, a mathematical equation, was a really complex method, but people discovered some way to make it easier, and OpenAI don't exactly steal that, but use it. So you're basically giving free information to OpenAI each time you use ChatGPT. And also, when you disable your story, it's true that they don't use that information to train their model, but they can see the information, just don't use it to train their model, because it says specifically that they store your chat information 30 days, even when you have your story power off, or just to make sure you don't do something illegal with that chat. So it's really not private at all.
Thank you, David. Yeah, and it's I think the folks who use Gmail and Google Workspace have the same kind of questions. Go ahead, Manny.
Sure, Paul. Hey, I just wanted to add, this list looks really good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then one thing to consider, I know companies have to consider, is short term, if they want to get immediate ROI, is to bring in some of these companies on the existing products they have, like SAP, PeopleSoft, Workday. Take advantage of the AI they have and turn that on as soon as you can, right? Because building it out yourself versus already turning on what companies are building, you'll get faster return in ROI. I mean, they always said that's the short-term, that's the immediate thing you need to do. Medium term would be to look for specific areas within your organization, like forecasting, design, content generation, and then you can acquire or build using some of these things that you listed. And then the grandiose one is put a plan on revamping your whole company to take advantage of AI. But now you're talking heavy duty costs, long-term, years, possibly, et cetera. So to me, there's short-term, medium-term, and then long-term solutions. And I think they're embedded in here in the list that you have.
That's great. Thank you, Manny. And again, anecdotally, my sense is that 90% of these companies in the bottom left who are adding large language model capability are using the OpenAI API. Would you or others agree or disagree with that?
I wouldn't agree.
Okay. Who's that, Adam?
That's me. Yeah, of course, Paul. The voice of discontent. I think many of them, like I know Salesforce is partnering with OpenAI, but they're not using the API. They're integrating, right? They're just like Microsoft has taken a version of the GPT model and made it into Bing. They're taking a version of GPT and making it into their Salesforce tool. They're not just making API calls at the enterprise level like that.
Okay. So that's interesting. So going forward, will Salesforce ever update that training data?
Well, they're building on top of GPT-4 right now, right?
Yeah.
And that model isn't updated. GPT-4 is GPT-4. They're doing their own fine tuning of it, just like Bing doesn't behave exactly the same as ChatGPT.
Oh no, yes, that's maybe we're saying the same thing. That's what I'm saying, that they're not, most companies like Salesforce are using some version of ChatGPT and not going with a Cohere or a.
I see. Yes, they're going with OpenAI.
Okay.
I'm saying they wouldn't just use an API though.
Correct.
Sorry.
Correct.
And that's what I thought the point we were making is they're not building a solution. They're just buying it basically through the API. And I'm saying, no, they're just building on top of GPT-4.
One other thing that we've certainly, everyone's learning. It's been very interesting. We've done our briefings, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, I don't know, 20, certainly 15 different product vendors. And even I won't use specific names, but even companies that have raised $100 million plus who are in the market are still very curious on what we're seeing and also learning as well. So there's a lot of companies. Minestral's over in Europe. They've raised 113 in their seed round. We just found out another company today, and I can forget the name. Tomorrow.io, I think it is, just raised 20 million a couple months ago for yet another foundational model. So there's a lot of different approaches and a lot of money going into trying to crack the code or start finding different niches for this.
And Paul, it's very use case specific. Sorry for jumping in, but they're all racing to try and be the AI gurus. They're all doing the same thing. So the end consumers, they have the advantage. They can let all these guys build and try and be number one, but you can pick and choose by use case which one you want and take advantage of it, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I think
the buyer's
Yeah,
guide,
and in
Paul,
fact,
sorry, I was going to say, as far as the buyer's guide, Paul, it may be helpful, as a buyer to know which ones are actually building their own versus which ones are using an API call, like what Adam was saying, versus, someone not even using GPT-4 as the foundation and building their own. So I think breaking those three in that horizontal box may be helpful.
Thank you, Tanya. We're working on that. It's been also fuzzy, kind of sometimes getting through the vendor claims of what exactly is going on behind the curtain, but that makes a lot of sense. Let's keep driving on the agenda. So thanks for all the feedback on that. We're working on a report November 14th at 9 a.m. Easterns when our release date is. So we're barreling towards that. We know we're going to have to update it more. We're trying to finalize the update schedule. Might be quarterly, might be every 6 months, but we do want to at least contribute to getting a little more organization around this and helping a straw man out there where people can start critiquing, improving, and stop wasting time. Shorten the learning curve is probably a better way to say it, because it is very, very confusing. And we've got teams here. We probably put, I bet, collectively 300 hours in trying to understand the stuff, and it's still kind of confusing at times as well. But let's keep driving. Let's open at the open mic. Do people this is a point where people can share observations or ask a question to the group or do a short demo, or G, I'm going to call you out. Have you found anything interesting in the last 2 weeks that's impressed you? I know you've been in this space for a while.
Yeah, so I think the first time I got introduced to the group was through the conference. So I was there both days, and the topics and speakers were all excellent. I think the interactions in the halls were also great. I think, Boston has a lot of entrepreneurs, new companies, as well as big companies, where we should all collaborate and build something strong, because we have the tech power, we have the domain expertise, especially when it comes to life sciences and so forth. So I'm looking forward to the discussions and working with you all and try to make that happen if possible.
Great. Thanks, G. We look forward to that. Steve, I saw your hand go up and go down.
Yeah, I got a quick question for the group here. So I have a client that has taken cloud data from their system. They they grab it all, they put it in a big lake, and then they're using a OpenAI on top of that so that their users can ask questions of hundreds of pages of report data. And so my question for the group is that a pretty common application of OpenAI for other products that are out there? Have you heard or seen other products headed that way?
How do they do this? Basically, you are saying they are saving it into a lake. They're saving this into a vector database, or it's just NoSQL database?
Yeah, I'm not sure which database they're using. Could be SQL, could be some data lake they're using, but they're using OpenAI on top of that as the interface to ask questions of all these reports. So instead of having to plow through 200 pages of reports, the user can say, show me the key questions or the key answers that I'm looking for.
But there is distinct difference. So if they're using vector database, it's most likely they're using retrieval augmented generation, which is like a key technology for using this AI stack at the moment. If they're using something else, that's maybe some custom technique.
Yeah. I don't. All I know is that it took them a very short amount of time to do this, so they're using pretty standard processing tools.
So Steve, I'm doing the same thing with my client, but we're not permitting use of their own data, their corporate data or their clients' data with ChatGPT. That's only with Bing Chat Enterprise. Again, that it's already a sunk cost for them, and it's not clear that you can get the kind of security to your data that would meet the agreements they have with their clients. So they're not willing to risk it. But we are aggregating reports like say 10Ks into clouds that is public data, and are tending to use Claude for that because it has a much bigger context window.
Great, thank you, David. Let's chat offline.
Great. Go ahead, Adam. Thanks for raising your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We're using the Azure OpenAI Studio at our company, which is the tool that allows you to then use your own data and connect to GPT on the back end with OpenAI, but through Azure and through that integration. And I think, I apologize, who was it who was just talking about RAG and retrieval augmentation? And I think that's what it's doing still. But I think if you're talking about having a data lake and then using OpenAI on top of it in enterprise, that's probably going to be the way most people go. I haven't caught up with, we have like specifically an AI specialist, and he got that chat going, but I haven't figured out on the back end, like, is he just plugging into something that's in Azure, or is it talking to our SharePoint, or what is he doing on the back end in terms of the storage when you talk about a data lake?
Who's been playing with the image to text? I've been increasingly taking pictures of things or hand drawing things and uploading it to Bing Chat or OpenAI and having it convert to text or tell me what it is or find a similar image. And I've been pretty impressed with it, particularly get some of my handwriting. Has any others tried that at all or have good use cases?
The short answer is yes, but I'm really just playing with it. I saw a very amusing example of using it recently, which was taking a picture of a stack of about 5 conflicting no parking signs and saying, it's Wednesday at 4:00. Can I park here? and it figured it out for them.
I saw that as well, David. I found that stunning. It's really
definitely useful in Boston.
Yeah, exactly, precisely.
Yeah, I played it with this a little bit, but I wanted to do more than that because I am more technical person, and I was trying to build application around this, but unfortunately there is no way. They haven't published API for this capability. So you can use it in ChatGPT, but you cannot build your own application with the similar functionality, unfortunately. Not yet. So maybe they will publish it, maybe not.
Yeah, great. Go ahead, Adam, and then we'll go to Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Like most people, I think mostly it's been playing. I found one actual valid use for it at work so far, which was great. Someone had a PowerPoint slide, and on it they had the list of the members of their team and then which accounts they had assigned to them. And I just wanted an Excel list of the accounts that had someone assigned to them. So I messaged him. I said, "Hey, do you have this in an Excel spreadsheet?" And he said, "No." I was like, "You literally don't have a list of the accounts that have someone assigned to them." So I just took that picture and I uploaded it and said, give me structured data for a CSV that's a list of the owner and then the account name, and it just ripped it right out for me. And then I copy pasted that into the advanced data analysis and said, "Give this to me in an Excel document," and then I just downloaded the Excel. So that was quite useful, actually.
That's a great use case, Adam. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Then we'll go to David.
Yeah, at Pieces for Developers, we've got a part of our software is actually shipping now, but you can take a picture of code on a screen and it will pull the code for you. We've just recently finished a piece that's OCR off of a video in the same vein. So you can sit there and watch a video and it will pull all the code you need. Then you put it into a snippet and then store it. So
that's great. Thank you. Go ahead, David, and then we'll go to Paul.
Hi, actually, you said Bing Chat when it came out, the image option. I made a bot that used the browser because they don't have a public API yet, but it was really powerful. I have to get the data from Instagram of a store of vitamins. So I send all these images one by one to this Bing Chat, and it analyzes it and say, "Hey, it's sending this for this price and in this store," and I built my own database with all this information. It was quite precise, and in BitChat is a little bit more powerful than in ChatGPT because it uses internet to find the right product you're searching for. So if, for example, this store is selling a product other store is also selling, it will find it and it will try to lower the price, which is actually really mind-blowing. I built a whole database. It took like 10 hours because it was a manual process in the computer because there is no API. Well, it was automated with a bot that clicks automatically, but it was really slow. But after I got a really nice database of all these posts from Instagram translated to text with Bing's image view. So it's really powerful. I hope they release an API soon because it will change almost everything for me as a programmer.
Yeah. That's great, David. Thank you. Go ahead, Paul Schofield. Then we'll go to Meredy.
I'm doing a lot of messaging for a lot of people on new concepts, and what I do is I use the sandwich. I tell ChatGPT to talk like a 5-year-old, talk like a CFO, and talk like a CISO. Then I use those to prepare for different. I layer them in together. So I usually start off like a 5-year-old as a joke, and then go back and forth. I'm doing a lot of transcriptions of a lot of videos that have very difficult language, either heavily accented or clipped. And I find that Whisper AI is really good at turning that to text. So I've been using Whisper AI almost constantly.
That's great. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
Meredy, am I saying you're correct?
Yes, you are. Kia ora. I just put a note in the chat, but I'm currently in week 2 of the 7-week MIT AI Applications for Business Management, Business Strategy Certificate. And so I just wanted to mention it. It's part-time online. I'm only in week 2, but it's led to a lot of really meeting a whole lot of really interesting people. It's a partnership between the management school at MIT and their Cecil AI lab. So if anyone has been, has noticed that on the internet and looked at it, feel free to reach out to me. I'll pop my LinkedIn there, to talk to a real person about what it's actually like and what I'm getting out of it. And then if there's anybody else on the call who's already done it, also reach out to me to let me know more about what I've signed up for. Thanks. That's me, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. No, tell us more about how long is the course, and are you planning to finish it?
So it's 7 weeks long, and the first week is kind of orientation, getting used to meeting a lot of the cohort, forming kind of little sub meetup groups around industry passions or kind of global areas, then it's kind of project based, where it's where you kind of take a case study and follow a case study to kind of exercise some of your learnings to put that into practice, into a strategy for a company. I saw a note in there, is it free? No, it's not free. I'm lucky enough to have sponsorship for it, but it's, it's a bit of an investment, but I'm finding I've set up a Trello board with all the things that people have referenced that I should look at or useful stuff, and it's just raining stuff. I don't know when I'll ever finish all of the awesome stuff that people are sharing with me. So it's and it's quite well run and organized is what I'm enjoying as well, from a learning experience for someone who's kind of holding down the day job and doing this with their other hand, you know.
I brought
It's
enchiladas.
doable. Sorry, say that
Just
again.
heat them up.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Mary. Thank you for sharing. So last call. Anybody else want to share a thing on open mic or questions? Or if not, we'll end a few minutes early. Well, good. Well, thank you,
Hey,
everybody.
Paul, it's Kevin Petrie. I had trouble raising my hand here, but I wanted to make an assertion and just invite any feedback on it or offline conversations as well. It seems to me that a lot of the innovation with large language models is fantastic, but will rapidly commoditize, and rather a lot of the profit in the market will go to companies that figure out how to fine tune or handle RAG or generally feed proprietary data into these models. Big topic, big thought, but would welcome any feedback on it.
Kevin, certainly in the in discussions with vendors, we've had a lot of different discussions on, you know, what's the next wave of language models? Do they become more specialized, you know, IoT based, you know, by function, training certain data? And there's a certainly thesis in some of that is that those become more valuable. We've been told one major hospital is raising $500 million to build a large language model that's solely trained on healthcare data. And they think that would be more valuable, but
yeah, we definitely anticipate a shift towards domain specific use cases based on domain specific data, and that's where the fine tuning becomes important, and perhaps those models themselves can be profitable as well.
I'm stunned at the engineering efficiency we're seeing in some of these. I mean, people have always seen that, you know, Midjourney's got 12 or 15 employees doing $110 million. Ministral, we spoke with, they raised 113 million. They've got 18 engineers. They don't think they're going to be needing much more engineers. There's another company we talked with that raised 150 million, built a foundational language model. They don't think they're going to need more. So there's an efficiency side there, which I think it probably bodes well, maybe Kevin, for your argument on the getting
for the
more
profitability.
Yeah, and the profitability. Yes.
Yeah, and that could be true. And that could be true. Reduced headcount costs.
Well, good. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for a very good discussion as usual, and have a great week, everyone. A good day and good evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. Thank you.